শিকারে ভয় করে যে পায় তোমারে রে ভয় করে যে পায় তোমারে অনুরাগের ডোরে বাঁধে সে তোমারে অনুরাগের ডোরে বাঁধে সে তোমারে কাটে বাধা ঘন প্রিয়তম তুমি প্রিয় আমার প্রিয়তম তুমি ঘনতম সায় ঝঞ্ঝা ঝটিকায় ঘনতম সায় ঝঞ্ঝা ঝটিকায় সাথে আছো জিতেছো প্রিয়তম তুমি প্রিয় আমার প্রিয়তম তুমি প্রিয় আমার প্রিয়তম তুমি বাবা নাম কেবলা 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 गीता बाबा की जय। नमस्कार।
Thank you so much, Sursili Didi. Welcome you all on GPI platform. Today we all gather here to one international webinar. Here is one very known speaker with us. GPA arranged one a great webinar for you, and very relevant topic with us will share between to you. आजकल हम लोग देख रहे हैं डिप्रेशन, एंजाइटी, स्ट्रेस मोस्ट कॉमन प्रॉब्लम लोगों को हो रहा है, और लोग सफर हो रहे हैं बट समझ नहीं पा रहे हैं कि हाउ टू कम आउट फ्रॉम दिस काइंड ऑफ सिचुएशन प्रॉब्लम. So now going to forward Vartika Chan Didi to take over the आगे का session and introduce our speaker.
Namaskar to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the GPIF platform and also Meera Didi especially for giving me the opportunity to moderate this very important international webinar of 2003 of GPIF platform. So thank you very much, Didi. Or with this, now I would like to introduce our eminent speaker of this webinar, Dr. Tapsi M. Dayanand Didi. Didi is a medical doctor. She is working at the Department of Psychiatry at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. And also she is serving as an instructor in Harvard Medical School. She has done her MBBS from JJM Medical College in India. And also after that, she has done her residency from Duke University and then fellowship in Geriatric Psychiatry from Yale University, which is one of the most prestigious university in the United States. And she has served Harvard Medical School, currently working at the Massachusetts General Hospital as an instructor in psychiatry. And she has been teaching medical students, nursery students, and psychiatry interns also. And also she has delivered so many lectures like on the topics I was reading, that the prison yoga project, rehabilitation and restorative justice. Then like early onset of Alzheimer's disease, what are the signs? Then also she is supervising some neuromodulatory therapies. And also she has carried out the geriatric boot camp titled on late life depression. So she is an expert in the especially geriatric psychiatry, and also serving in various ways to psychiatry interns and medical students. And today we are very blessed to have her on this platform to listen more about this. We all know that the loneliness, anxiety, and depression, which is the current problem, not among the teenagers, but also in the middle-aged people and even the old people. So this is a current situation. So it's a very relevant topic which Meera Didi, they all have selected. So let's welcome our speaker, Dr. Tapsi Didi. Over to you, Didi.
Namaskar, Vartika Didi. Oh my God, that is an embarrassment of riches. Namaskar, everyone. First of all, it is such an honor to be a part of GPIF. But I guess this is a little more than GPIF. My presentation was geared towards GPIF. So lovely to be here. It's an honor to be here with all of you. You guys are doing such great work. I keep hearing about this, and you are bringing around an intellectual revolution. And hopefully we can join someday and enrich ourselves. Also, an interesting note: the Prison Yoga Project is run by Dr. Fox in California, but when I was at Duke, it was run in North Carolina by Acharya Pashupati, who is a Margi. So this was Anand Marg Yoga that was taught at prison. He's actually done, like you, Vartika Didi, he's done primary research. He's published this on I think it's a Journal for Yoga and Alternative Medicine. So I think there's some great work being done. However, just coming back to my presentation, I have about like 45 minutes to an hour, right?
Sure, Didi, and you can take much time and no problem. Time is no
No,
problem. Yeah.
Try to keep it concise. ये बहुत informal है. I will also try to speak in English. Some of the official terms would be hard for me to translate, but
मैडम
during
जी अगर हिंदी में बोले तो अच्छा है.
हाँ जी दादा मैं definitely try करूंगी हिंदी में बोलने का, but कुछ
हाँ.
official professional जो ये है उनके मुझे हिंदी के अनुवाद नहीं आते. Hindi में
Yeah, Didi, I will help them. No problem. You just continue on your pace. I will help. Definitely.
Perfect. Thank you, Vartika Didi.
Yeah.
And feel free to stop me in between and translate also. Hindi मेरी first language नहीं है दादा, कन्नड़ा है, but बात कर लेती हूँ. कुछ terms जो नहीं समझ में आते, वर्तिका दीदी help करेंगे. आशु दीदी है, मेरी माँ है, मम्मी है यहाँ पे, और question and answer में तो definitely बोल ही सकते हैं.
तापसी दीदी अनम्यूट कर लीजिए.
अभी तक बिल्कुल म्यूट था, कुछ नहीं सुनाई दिया.
नहीं सुनाई दे रहा था, बट एक्चुअली मैंने अभी सबको किया.
परफेक्ट. ठीक है. तो दीदी मेरे दीदी क्या मैं अपनी स्क्रीन शेयर कर सकती हूँ?
यस श्योर दीदी. नाउ यू आर होस्ट.
परफेक्ट, थैंक यू. तो आई विल डू दिस. Or if you're not able to hear me, or if you want me to stop at some point, please Vartika didi, मेरे दीदी, just stop me and I'm happy to मतलब जो भी questions है वो answer करके चले जाएंगे. तो मेरे पास ये बहुत ही informal presentation है. मेरे पास इतने ज्यादा slides नहीं है, around 12 to 13 slides है. 2 studies है जो published है. Actually journal of एक तो I think New England Journal में Gerontological Society of America में published है, which is a decent journal. और दूसरा published है Oxford University Press में. So I think ये दोनों अच्छे studies है. एक तो random, एक तो meta analysis systematic review है. तो I think मेरे objective, मेरे goal इस session का होगा कि आप जान पाए कि योगा के जो effects है वो documented है और generalizable है, और देखा गया है कि योगा से effect difference होता है, और ये normal population में it can make a difference, right? So मेरी objective यहाँ पे होगा कि depression और loneliness क्या है. If I can, अगर मैं आपको if I can help you understand that, and then क्या loneliness से depression बढ़ता है, और if loneliness and depression increases, or if loneliness increases your risk of depression, then what can moderate it? उसको कम क्या कर सकता है. My Hindi is not exactly the best, but उसको कौन सा चीज moderate कर सकता है, कम कर सकता है.
Didi, you carry on your comfortable language. Nothing to.
Is it okay if I speak in English, and then in question and answer session we can?
Sure. Nothing to.
Perfect. So can loneliness increase the risk of depression? First of all, did COVID, in which we all sort of felt like we were lonely in some ways, did that affect people's mental health? And if it did, can loneliness cause increased risk of depression? And if yes, what can moderate it? Can increase social engagement, right? Logo se zyada baat karna, touching base with people, with your loved ones, can that decrease the risk of depression? Or is it increased relationship strength, a sense ki my relationships with the people around me are really strong? And what is that factor where people feel, I'm surrounded by people, yet I don't have good relationship strength, or I only have like 1 or 2 people I talk with, but I have great relationship strength. What is that thing, right? What is that factor that contributes to a sense of purpose? And the other study is pretty straightforward. Can yoga increase health-related quality of life and mental well-being? Like Vartika Didi said, I work with the geriatric age group, I work with dementia. So both of these studies are done in the geriatric age group, over the age of 60, but both of these studies, and there's plenty of evidence in younger people. So just because I'm saying that this is in geriatric age group doesn't mean this is not generalizable to a younger population. So that's the caveat. So I will go on. Let me just see. So what is depression and what is loneliness, right? So loneliness, let's talk about loneliness. Is loneliness depression? they're two very different beings, right? Loneliness is tanhai, or this sense of being isolated, and the sense of being isolated, which leads to a feeling of bleakness or desolation. Not only do you feel alone, you also feel sad, and you're in despair, and you're sort of heartbroken, right? And we do know there is plenty of evidence that has been published in the past that this leads to higher rates of depression and anxiety and mortality. Like lonely people on an average die earlier than people that are not lonely, then people feel like they are supported by other people. So another question is, right, for us as Anand Margis, I think most of us are Anand Margis here, right? Or spiritual people, is loneliness the same as solitude, right? Ekant, or I think Tanhai, I'm mixing up Hindi and Urdu. Is it the same thing? And I guess not, right? So one, solitude, we have lots of people like Indian saints and maybe Dadas and Didis, or the Christian mystics and Sufis. They're used to seeking solitude, and they're happy, right? They're functioning well, they're happy. Whereas loneliness is people, you could be surrounded by a lot of people. You could live in a big city like New York or Delhi or Bombay and yet feel very, very lonely, very misunderstood. Nobody understands me. I don't understand I don't understand what they want from me. So that's loneliness. What is depression, right? Sometimes when we feel sad, we say, oh, I'm very depressed, right? Sadness is a part of life. Just like happiness is a part of life, ups and downs are a part of life. And I don't think sadness itself is depression, right? Like, and that's why people, when you say you're depressed, people say, well, it's just a little sadness, ye kar lo, and ya fir whatever, mandir chale jao, bhagwan ki puja kar lo, theek ho jayega. And I mean, we can talk about that, but sadness is not depression. Sadness is just a natural reaction to what's happening around us sometimes, right? There's a lot of bad stuff that's happening around us. And sometimes some of these great psychiatrists in the past, there's a school hai, existential philosophy bolke, which I think Baba also mentions, right? We talk about vairagya and expansion of mind, right? There is this sense that we need something more, right? We need something more than what we get. And that can sometimes feel like becheni and sadness. And so existentially, sadness can be a part of who we are, melancholia. Depression's not that. Depression is sustained low mood, which can happen if there is tension in your life, if there's some stressful situation in your life, or it can happen out of nowhere. It could just be a biological change in your mind. And then it can be associated with a cluster of these symptoms, right? One is hypersomnia or insomnia, which is not being able to sleep, or sleeping too much, not being able to get out of your bed. जैसे या तो फिर नींद नहीं आ रही है, बुरा लग रहा है और नींद नहीं आ रही है, या फिर नींद, बेड में ही पड़े हैं आप, रात को सो रहे हैं, सुबह भी सो रहे हैं, आपको you don't want to face life. Weight loss or gain because of lack of appetite or increased appetite, fatigue, out of nowhere. Medically, you go see your doctor, everything's fine, you don't have anemia, you don't have any other symptoms, but you have no energy, decreased concentration, you're not able to concentrate on television or reading. You read something, you go back and you read again, you feel guilty, and not like, oh, I did something terrible, like I didn't feed the dog and so I feel guilty, or did I talk to my mom in a rude way and I feel guilty. This guilt is sort of deep existential guilt. People would be better off without me. अगर मैं धरती पे बोझ हूँ, अगर मैं यहाँ पे नहीं होती तो सबकी, like, everyone's life would be much easier. मैं सबके, like, जिंदगी में बाधा हूँ, that sort of thing, like sort of very existential feeling of guilt about existing. Or I have cancer, मेरे पीठ में दर्द है, मेरे पेट में दर्द है, and then you go to the doctor, everything's fine, but that's still, like, you still carry a sense of brokenness. It could be with regards to your physical health, and feeling hopeless, कि nothing is going to get better. ये मेरी situation hopeless है, कुछ भी अच्छा नहीं होगा, helpless, and suicidal thoughts, right? Having thoughts of either wanting to go to bed and not wake up, or just having thoughts of killing yourself. And we've had some high profile suicides in India, right? Some of them have been in stars and this really wealthy people. And so I think we kind of feel sometimes that suicide sort of happens to people that are in a desperate situation. And I think desperation is a state of mind, right? Depression doesn't distinguish between the rich and the poor. It's an equal opportunity offender. So I think it's if you feel like this is a situation which doesn't get better, then I think that's when, you start having these thoughts. And if all of these symptoms are causing sort of impairment, problems in your social life or your professional life or your occupational life, so then this is depression. Ya to your family is starting to feel like you're not contributing, or you're feeling like aap nahi contribute kar rahe hai, ya fir aapke job mein aapko negative feedback aa raha hai, ya to fir aap you're not able to enjoy life, right? Like life becomes almost meaningless. So then this is depression. I'm going to carry on. If you have any questions, I'm happy to, if this is like really important, I'm happy to take them. If not, we'll answer them as soon as we finish the presentation, right? So we now know the difference between loneliness and depression. So let's go on. So this is the paper I want to talk about. It's the impact of sheltering in place. Sheltering in place, matlab COVID ki jo isolation tha, when in India we had that too. You cannot get out of your house, right? What's it called? I think it was called isolation here, sheltering in place. SIP is what I will be calling it from now on. Kya iske wajah se logon ke social or mental well-being affect hua, right? Did this affect people's social and mental, older adults, because that's what it was done in, did it affect their social and mental well-being? So this was a study that was done in Bloomington, Indiana. It was not done with keeping COVID in mind. This was a study that they had started in 2019 in about like 120 adults, but overall, I think by the time they completed the study, about like 93 older adults kind of qualified to be counted in the study. And they were looking at people's mental health, right? And loneliness and their, and what moderates that. So they started in sort of summer or fall of 2019. So they spoke to 120 adults, and these adults had to fill personal social network. This is a structured network interview from the Phoenix Toolkit. Aap Google mein dekh sakte hai. This asks questions like, how many people do you feel you're close to? Who's your family? Who are your friends? How often do you talk to them? How often do you feel like you have a good relationship with them? Like, how do you feel like your relationship with them? And then I think like 36 questions ke scale hai. And then once they fill that scale, they were able to aggregate that scale and come up with a perceived relationship strength. Matlab ki inki relationship ki strength kya hai? Unke questionnaire ke basis pe, right? And then they also had to fill this subjective loneliness scale. This is just a 3-item scale. Do you feel understood? Do you feel lonely? How do you think people perceive you? Something like that. And you can pull this up, UCLA loneliness scale. And then an 8-item depression scale. So ये जो मैंने डिप्रेशन के सिम्टम्स बात किए वही स्केल है, वही सिम्टम्स है. तो 0 to 2 अगर आप उस पे आपको 0 to 2 मिलेगा तो आप डिप्रेस नहीं है. 3 to 5 अगर आप लेंगे तो माइल्ड डिप्रेशन है. 6 to 8 मॉडरेट डिप्रेशन. 8 is severe depression, right? So adults had to fill these 3 measures and they were going to follow them up, but then COVID happened. So in the United States, March 2020, we went into COVID lockdown, so shelter in place ho gaya. So then they thought, let's see how COVID has impacted them. And after COVID, like in April, May, they had to refill these questionnaires over phone or virtually. So what they did is they compared people's sense of isolation, sense of loneliness, depression, and a sense of perceived relationship strength before COVID and after COVID. Right. So additionally, in the second time when they went back to people, they also looked at what is their COVID related behaviors. How strict are they in isolation? Kyunki here we had some crazy people who didn't like isolation and then were rebelling against, I mean, not crazy, I shouldn't say that, but people were rebelling against the imposed COVID orders. So they said, what's your COVID related behavior? And if they were not following shelter in place, they were excluded from the study. And they also said, how much time are you spending with your family members or loved ones, right? Virtually. तो आप कितना time spend कर रहे हैं अपने family members या अपने neighbors या अपने relatives, जिनके पास आप close हैं उनके साथ. So I think this was the result. This looks complicated, but I will try to break it down. So the second time, उन्होंने depressions के scores tag किए, loneliness के scores compare किए, and then depression और loneliness के जो scores थे एक दूसरे के साथ compare किए, right? कि उनका relationship क्या है? जब depression बढ़ता है क्या loneliness बढ़ता है? Does loneliness increase? With depression, is there a positive correlation, which means when this increases, or is there a negative correlation? Whereas when this increases, this actually decreases, right? Or is there no connection at all, right? Like, is it just random? So these were our three questions. So the first question is, did people get more depressed with COVID-related isolation, right? Shelter in place. And we see, yahan pe humko dikhta hai, I'm actually going to, आपको ये दिख रहा है मेरे arrow दिख रहा है? Can you see my arrow?
Yes.
Perfect. So ये mean PHQ जो होता है, it's mean PHQ score. तो this is time 2 का है. Time 2 मतलब after COVID. So in time 1, the mean PHQ was 2.40 plus a standard deviation of 2.71. So let's add them and say कि 5 to 6, right? 5 to 5.5 था PHQ scale पे time 1 में. डिप्रेशन तो लोग ऑलरेडी डिप्रेस जो थे, डिप्रेशन जो लाइक बेसिक लेवल ऑफ डिप्रेशन होता है वो मॉडरेट था, 3 to 5 मॉडरेट है ना PHQ स्केल पे, पर कोविड के बाद टाइम 2 में 3.24 प्लस स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन ऑफ 2.40, राइट? सो it was increased, so that's around 5 to almost going into 6, right? 5 to 5.5, like, which is going into the moderate depression territory. So sorry, mild depression से moderate depression हुआ. You can say, आपको लग सकता है कि एक ही point बड़ा है, इतना कोई, like, it doesn't make such a difference, right? But if that one point means you're not sleeping, or you're not eating, or you're losing weight, or you have no happiness, right? Anhedonia, right? Like hedonism, Greek word hai, this ability to seek happiness, right? Which Baba also talks about. We all have this ability to seek sukha or ananda, right? So anhedonia is not having any hedonism, like nothing brings you happiness. So I think that's significant, right? So before COVID and after COVID, there was an increased rate of depression. And I think this is for people in science, like Pratika Didi, right? Like the confidence interval was 0.29 to 1.38, and it was statistically significant. So loneliness, did loneliness increase in time too? Yes, ye pretty straightforward hai. Loneliness scale was 6.05 with a standard deviation of 2.83. So I would say like 8 to 9 in time 2, whereas in time 1, the loneliness scale, they got like 5.14 and 2.49, so around 7, but so there was like 7 to 8. There was also an increase in the loneliness ratio, loneliness scale. There was an increase in loneliness post-COVID. Now our third question, does an increase in loneliness cause an increase in depression? And there was a positive correlation. ये देखा गया कि जो ज़्यादा lonely feel करते हैं वो ज़्यादा depressed feel कर रहे हैं, right? कि loneliness 0.77 था time 1 में mean loneliness, and time 2 में mean loneliness, time 1 में mean loneliness 0.77 था, and then time 2 में increase हुआ, and depression also increased by 0.89 points, right? Sorry. Let me come back again. The loneliness increased by 0.77 points, time 2 mein, and depression increased by 0.89 points on the PHQ-9 scale. So there was a little bit of an increase. It wasn't a huge increase like 10 points, but if that 1 point is your quality of life goes down, so there was an increase. So loneliness ke wajah se depression increase hota hai, right? Like this is the answer until now. I'm going to start play. So now we come to the second part, right? This is also the most important part. I'm going to decrease this so you can see the whole thing. Let me see how I can do that. Give me 1 second. Okay. So the most important thing was what led to a decrease in this depression, right? Like what moderated the depression? And you can see this. Can you see my arrow? Can you see my arrow? So on the x-axis is relationship strength. आपके relationships कितने strong है, या फिर आपको कितने लगता है कि आपके relationship strong है, आपके sense of purpose है. So this is +1, people who felt like their relationship was very strong. And this is average, people who felt like ठीक है, you know, there's not much difference. And this is -1, people who felt like their relationships were either not strong or they sort of loosened up. COVID के time पे relationship strength, tie strength strong नहीं था. And on y-axis, you can see depression points, right? So 0, no depression, and 0.5, 1, 1.52. So if you go up higher, you have increased depression. If you go down lower, you have no depression. So if you're somewhere here, it means you're happy. There's no depression. And if you're somewhere here, that means you are more depressed. And this solid line jo hai, these are +1 standard deviation loneliness. The solid one, sorry, -1 standard deviation loneliness, which is where people felt like, I'm not lonely. COVID came, I'm sheltering in place, but I have, you know, I'm not lonely. I have a sense of purpose. People understand me. This is that solid line. And then the gray line is people who have an average degree of loneliness. And the dotted line is people who have +1 standard deviation loneliness, people who felt very lonely. So जो solid line है वो lonely बिल्कुल नहीं थे, gray line जो है average थे, और dotted line जो थे जो बहुत lonely feel किए, right? So you can see that people who did not feel they were lonely, if they did not feel they had a strong depression, if they did not feel like they had a strong relationship strength, then they were very depressed. But people that felt like they had great relationship strength and were not lonely, so they did not feel any depression. So here, people who felt like they had great relationship strength had no depression, and people who felt like at some point their relationship strength was low felt like they were depressed, right? And it's the same, that is the same with average depression. Increased relationship strength, low depression, or almost no depression, and then as their relationship strength decreased, and even with loneliness, average loneliness, the depression increased. And people who felt lonely, it did not matter if they had great relationship strength, they were always depressed. Does that make sense? Does everyone understand this? Like, this is sort of like the summary of this study, right? Ki if you are lonely, then you will be depressed. It will lead to depression. However, if you have increased relationship strength, then that will moderate your depression, right? So depression scores were reduced slightly for older adults who felt like their ties became stronger and who experienced a decrease in loneliness. And if you had increased loneliness, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if you had perceived relationship strength, you just felt lonely. So I think, sorry, there's a question. Someone raised a hand. Could you please type it in the chat? Let me just see.
Didi,
yeah,
we can take the questions later on.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Sorry. There is some mathematical.
Yeah. So
yeah.
You can just give the gist of the entire this study.
Yeah, that's exactly what I will do. Let me give you the gist of the entire study. So iska gist hai कि जो डिप्रेशन के स्कोर्स है वो एडल्ट्स, राइट, जिनको लगा कि उनके रिलेशनशिप स्ट्रांग है या फिर पैंडेमिक के टाइम पे स्ट्रांग हो गया, और जो लोनली नहीं फील कर रहे, क्योंकि यू नो इफ यू फील लाइक योर रिलेशनशिप्स आर स्ट्रांग देन आपके डिप्रेशन कम हो गए पहले से, राइट? सो अगर आप लोनली नहीं फील कर रहे हैं और अगर आपको लग रहा है कि आपकी रिलेशनशिप स्ट्रांग है तो आपकी डिप्रेशन कम हुई, राइट? दैट इज क्लियर, राइट? देन बट अगर आपकी रिलेशनशिप स्ट्रेंथ स्ट्रांग भी है, लेट्स से कि आपकी बहुत बड़ी फैमिली है, आपकी बहुत अच्छी रिलेशनशिप है, पर अगर आप लोनलीनेस एक्सपीरियंस कर रहे हैं तो फिर आपकी डिप्रेशन स्कोर्स ज्यादा हुआ, राइट? सो द लॉजिक यहाँ पे है कि जो लोनली फील करते हैं उनके डिप्रेशन तो बढ़ा ही बढ़ा, राइट? बट जो लोनली नहीं फील कर रहे हैं, अगर उनके रिलेशनशिप स्ट्रेंथ स्ट्रांग है तो वो कम डिप्रेस्ड हुए, और अगर उनके रिलेशनशिप स्ट्रांग नहीं है तो फिर वो उनके डिप्रेशन स्कोर्स ज्यादा बढ़े, राइट? सो लोनलीनेस इंक्रीजेस डिप्रेशन, रिलेशनशिप स्ट्रेंथ डिक्रीजेस डिप्रेशन. अगर आपको लाइक दिस इज द जिस्ट ऑफ द स्टडी, राइट? तो रिलेशनशिप स्ट्रेंथ क्या है, राइट? लाइक दिस इज अ वेरी एब्स्ट्रैक्ट कॉन्सेप्ट. व्हाट इज दिस? एंड विल टॉक अबाउट दैट. एक और बात लाइक आई वांट टू से कि people started saying कि oh you know ये शायद lonely इसलिए feel कर रहे हैं क्योंकि वो COVID है, right? Like isolation है, they're not able to connect with their loved ones or neighbors. तो उनको laptops दिए गए and they were allowed to talk virtually with their family. And I can मैं email करूँगी, I will send these studies to Manjula Didi and she can pass it on to the group. तो उनको laptops दिए गए and they were allowed to connect with their family every day for a certain number of hours, 3 hours I think, but उससे भी ज्यादा. तो they found out that उससे भी कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ा, right? जिनको loneliness था वो lonely in spite of social engagement वो lonely feel किए और उनके depression scores बढ़े हुए, right? Like खाली बात करने से या फिर you know एक दूसरे को like understood feel करने से depression भी कम नहीं हुआ, loneliness भी कम नहीं किया. Social engagement wasn't a moderating factor. ठीक है? I am going to go ahead. Sorry, let me go here. Just give me 1 second. Wait a minute. I don't know what this is. Does anyone know what this red stuff is? I'm actually just gonna restart this. Okay, perfect. Can you all see me? Okay, perfect. So
Aditi, PPT not visible yet.
not visible yet. Is this better?
Mm.
Tell me when it's visible. Oh, I need to share screen. Sorry.
Yeah, share screen.
ये दिख रहा है?
Yeah, now it's okay.
ठीक है. So I think relationship strength क्या होता है, right? So then they started asking these questions about what is relationship strength, and they came up to a conclusion that it's a sense of purpose. I don't know how to say this in Hindi, but and we can talk about this at the end of the session. जीने की एक reason, right? Like हम यहाँ पे क्यों है, which is pretty much I think our idea and ideology. Like why are we here, right? So they found out that older adults who felt less important to their networks, especially ladies जो babysitting नहीं कर पा रहे थे अपने grandchildren के, and grandfathers जो who felt like कि वो किसी को drop नहीं कर पा रहे, yard work नहीं कर पा रहे, अपने बच्चों को या फिर अपने you know अपने लोगों को, right? Like help नहीं कर पा रहे, वो लोनली फील किए. सो ये जो ऑल्ट्रुइज्म है, जो हम सेवा बोलते हैं या फिर सूफी ज़कत बोलते हैं, द क्रिश्चियन मिस्टिक्स से चैरिटी, ये दूसरों की हैप्पीनेस के लिए नहीं है. दिस इज फॉर आवर ओन हैप्पीनेस, राइट? लाइक व्हिच इज व्हाई बाबा सेज डू इट, see the happiness in the other person and move on, right? Like if you make this a business, you're going to be miserable, because when you do something for someone, like you GPIF guys are doing this, you know, these and all of you, of course, but when you do this stuff for someone, it gives you a sense of purpose. I had a patient who was very wealthy, who was very depressed, and he wanted to kill himself, right? Like he was very suicidal. So at one point he almost had the gun ready. He had all his affairs in order. तो वो सुसाइड नोट लिख के बैठे हुए थे, तो उनके घर में जो डॉग था, उनका पेट था, तो वो बार्क करने लगा कि बाहर जाना है, राइट? लाइक बाहर जाके उसको अपना लाइक व्हाटएवर ही हैज टू पी और व्हाटएवर. तो ही गॉट अप, ही वेंट एंड ओपन द डोर. तो उसने ही टोल्ड मी दैट कि आई फेल्ट लाइक आई हैव सम वैल्यू, लाइक कुछ भी वैल्यू नहीं है तो फिर मैं इसको एटलीस्ट बाहर तो छोड़ सकता हूँ, राइट? लाइक एटलीस्ट लेटिंग माई डॉग इन एंड डॉग आउट gives me a sense of purpose. So मैं उसके लिए I can live. And do you see that? Like committing suicide is such a big I think I was talking to Viblanand Dada, who's here, and he told me that there are some things which bring a lot of dark samskaras, right? And suicide brings a lot of dark samskara to one, but it brings a lot of dark samskara to the society, right? Like, what sort of a society are we that we are not able to prevent people from self-destructing, from killing themselves? And like something as simple as this, a sense of purpose, stopped him from doing such a huge thing. And I think sense of purpose, we get a sense of purpose when we do stuff, you know, for people that are loud, we like them, right? And so it gives us, we feel better. So the relationship strength क्या है जो हम जानते हैं depression को moderate कर सकता है? This providing support to one's network. It could be volunteering at a food shelter. It could be Narayan Seva. It could be running these Sprout classes. It could be providing something as simple as childcare. It could be hanging out with a sick one. All of this led to an increased sense of purpose, which led to an increased relationship strength. So आप जरूरी नहीं है कि आप किसी को 10 बार फोन करें या फिर senior center चले जाए या फिर, you know, you hang out with your friends all day. Like, you know, if we do something that we feel like we're contributing, that leads to an increased sense of well-being. And data showed that loneliness was associated with the low risk of perceived support giving within the network, right? So I think this is the takeaway from the study is loneliness leads to increased depression, increased relationship strength leads to decreased depression, increased relationship strength comes from a sense of purpose comes from giving to your loved ones or feeling like you're giving. And it doesn't matter how big or small it is, anything you do can give you a sense of purpose. Okay? Shall we move on to the next study? And I'll take questions. Next वाला थोड़ा सा calculation, mathematical calculation है, पर उसके बाद मैं questions ले सकती हूँ and then हम इसको simplify कर सकते हैं. So the next study is, this is I think Vartika Didi can know, this is a systematic review, or people who are in science here can know this. A systematic review गोल्ड स्टैंडर्ड होता है स्टडीज में, क्योंकि सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यू में आप दो चीज करते हैं. एक तो रैंडमाइजेशन बोलते हैं कि आप I see Rajendra Dada shaking his head, so you know, right? Most of you know this, but for people who don't know, आप दो ग्रुप्स लेते हैं और दोनों ग्रुप्स में बिल्कुल कोई कंफाउंडिंग फैक्टर्स नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है कि एक ग्रुप में ओल्डर एडल्ट्स है, दूसरे ग्रुप में यंग लोग है और डायबिटीज एक ग्रुप में ज्यादा हुआ तो ऑब्वियसली ओल्ड पीपल में तो डायबिटीज का रिस्क ज्यादा है ना, तो आप रैंडमाइज करते हैं, तो आधा ओल्डर एडल्ट्स यहाँ पे आधा यहाँ पे, तो आप रैंडमाइज करते हैं और कंट्रोल करते हैं, राइट? आपके जो दो ग्रुप्स है वो बिल्कुल एक दूसरे की तरह होते हैं. एंड ब्लाइंडिंग बोल के एक चीज होता है स्टडी में कि जो एग्जामिनर है, जो आपको, जैसे अगर मैं आनंद मार्गी हूं और मैं योगा के इफेक्ट्स देखने चाहूंगी तो मैं चाहूंगी कि योगा के अच्छे इफेक्ट्स आए, राइट? तो अनकॉन्शियसली जो योगा करने वाला ग्रुप है, मेरे स्कोर्स अच्छे, मैं उनको अच्छे स्कोर्स दूंगी, नॉट चीटिंग के लिए नहीं, अनकॉन्शियसली मेरे माइंड में होगा कि ओ दे आर गेटिंग बेटर. सो एग्जामिनर को ब्लाइंड करना, राइट? लाइक मुझे पता ही नहीं है कि ये योगा कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे, ताकि मैं बिल्कुल बिना कोई पार्शियलिटी की स्कोर्स दे पाओ, राइट? सो सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यूज में अगर आप रैंडमाइज्ड कंट्रोल ट्रायल्स ले रहे हैं, जो इस स्टडी ने किया है, तो उसमें एडवांटेज है कि एक रैंडम सैंपल है, इट्स कंट्रोल्ड और ब्लाइंडिंग है. तो योगा में ब्लाइंडिंग बहुत मुश्किल होता है, राइट? लाइक लोगों को पता होता है कि वो योगा कर रहे हैं, एग्जामिनर्स को भी पता होता है वो योगा कर रहे हैं, तो वो जो पेड्रो स्कोर बोलते हैं 10 on 10 होता है, वो 10 on 10 इज द बेस्ट क्वालिटी स्टडी. योगा के लिए 8 on 10 दिया गया है ताकि इट्स रियली हार्ड टू ब्लाइंड देम. सो ये जो स्टडी है, इट गॉट अ पेड्रो स्कोर ऑफ 8 on 10. इट्स मतलब ये बोल रही हूँ कि ये बहुत अच्छी स्टडी है. तो आई एम गोइंग टू डिक्रीज इट सो यू कैन एक्चुअली सी द, ताकि आप देख पाए ना ये sample. Go here to this and play. I cannot see you guys, but जब ये हो जाएगा तो फिर क्वेश्चन आंसर करेंगे. तो दो चीज, ऑब्जेक्टिव ये था कि यहाँ पे दो चीज देखी गई कि हेल्थ रिलेटेड क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ, हेल्थ रिलेटेड क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ. क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ क्या होता है? आपको क्या लग रहा है अपने लाइफ के बारे में, क्या आप अपने लाइफ से खुश है, राइट? क्या आपको लग रहा है कि आप हेल्थी है, क्या आपको लग रहा है कि आप सोशली खुश है? Let me just play it. Okay. क्या आप अपने लाइफ से खुश है, आप कितने खुश है, राइट? कि आपको लगता है कि आपकी लाइफ में क्वालिटी है। और मेंटल वेलबींग के बारे में बात करेंगे। हमको पता है कि हेल्थ रिलेटेड, अगर आपको हेल्थ रिलेटेड क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ ज्यादा है, अगर आपको लगता है कि आपका हेल्थ ठीक है और आप मेंटल वेलबींग अच्छा है, तो वो हेल्थी एजिंग में माना जाता है, राइट? लाइक वी नो अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल जो आसन करते हैं, तांडव करते हैं, कौशकी करते हैं, साधना करते हैं, गुड डाइट फॉलो करते हैं, हेल्थी है, तो उनकी लॉन्ग लाइफ है, वो कभी कंप्लेन नहीं करते, ओ मेरी लाइफ ठीक नहीं है, मेरा लाइफ खत्म हो गया, राइट? लाइक हेल्थी एजिंग वो माना जाता है, राइट? और योगा इज अ माइंड बॉडी फिजिकल एक्टिविटी, हम जानते हैं, तो मैं योगा के बारे में कुछ नहीं बोलूंगी। स्टडीज है एंड आई एम हैप्पी टू पुल देम अप, यू कैन आल्सो पुल देम अप इन गूगल स्कॉलर। ये अच्छे स्टडीज है जो एस्टेब्लिश किया कि योगा से इंक्रीज स्ट्रेंथ होता है। एंड व्हेन दे टॉक अबाउट योगा, दे जस्ट टॉक अबाउट, इस स्टडी में सिर्फ योगासन के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, मेडिटेशन के बारे में नहीं, योगा ब्रीदिंग के बारे में नहीं, प्राणायाम के बारे में नहीं। तो स्ट्रेंथ इंक्रीज होता है, फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी इंक्रीज होता है, बैलेंस एंड मोबिलिटी एंड मूड। सो ये काफी स्टडीज है जो ये प्रूव करता है, स्ट्रेंथ, फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी, बैलेंस इंक्रीज होता है, स्पेशली ओल्डर एडल्ट्स जिनके डायबिटीज है, जिनके न्यूरोपैथी है, बैलेंस अच्छा नहीं है, तो योगासनास इंक्रीज बैलेंस एंड मोबिलिटी, जो चल नहीं पाते हैं, ऑस्टियोआर्थराइटिस है, जो दर्द है, योगा की वजह से वो चल, देयर वाज एन इंक्रीज इन मोबिलिटी, ज्यादा चल पाए। और मूड, डिप्रेशन को तो इंक्रीज हेल्प करता ही है। तो ये ऑलरेडी है। ये सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यू जो है, ये दिस लुक्स एट क्या आपकी हेल्थ रिलेटेड क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ हेल्प करता है योगा, and does it improve your well-being in people aged above a certain age, because that's what I see, right? So it's a systematic review of randomized control trials in people over 60 with yoga based postures, yogasan. तो आउटकम जो थे, जो मेजर किए गए, वो हेल्थ रिलेटेड क्वालिटी ऑफ लाइफ और मेंटल वेलबींग था। ओके, एंड सो ये इसके बारे में बाद में बात करेंगे। Sorry, I keep going back. So health related quality of life is when you feel like your physical health, your mental health, your emotional wealth, and your social wealth. Physical we know, mental we know, emotional is happiness, sadness. Are you able to express yourself? Do you feel like people understand you? Social is your ability to get along with your wife, your husband, your children, your parents, your buas, and your extended family, right? All of this impacts your health related quality of life. अगर आपको लग रहा है कि all of these areas में ठीक ठाक आप कर रहे हैं, तो आपकी quality of life अच्छी है। तो what is mental well-being? Mental well-being also we know through previous studies, mental well-being, a feeling of being well mentally, right? We know that people who have high scores on mental well-being feel like they're aging better. They have healthy aging. So it's usually associated with a higher level of calm, right? Like they're not in their bed, they're working out, they're going, they're gardening, they're probably reading, they're probably teaching, they're doing a lot more in their old age, and they're mobile, they're able to walk, and they have better health. So what is this? एक तो subjective experience of happiness. अगर आप उनसे पूछेंगे आप खुश है, तो वो बोलेंगे I mean, लगभग खुश हो, right? Like, I mean, none of us are completely happy, but I'm satisfied, I'm content with my life. And positive psychological functioning, they have good relationship with others, and self-realization and self-actualization. And we'll come back and talk about this. Self-actualization, thoda sa Western concept jo hai, existential philosophy mein based hai, to thoda sa different hai. It's the same, like in India, we have this concept of self-realization, which is very spiritual, right? Agar aap spiritual nahi hai, to fir aap self-realization, how do you see it? And here, people see it as finding a sense of purpose and being able to act on it, right? Deciding कि आपका इस दुनिया में आना किस चीज के लिए था और उस पे काम करना, right? I mean, रोटी कपड़ा मकान के लिए काम करना self realization नहीं होता। वो Maslow के theory में it is on the lower rung, right? I mean, of course, if you don't have food, if you don't have your basic needs met, you're not going to be happy. But एक होता है कि basic needs meeting के लिए आप काम कर रहे हैं, you're working a full-time job, you're taking care of everyone. When all of that is met, let's say आपके बैंक में enough balance है, तो फिर आप क्या करेंगे, right? One day you can sleep, and 2 days you can sleep and rest and have fun. उसके बाद you want to do something, and that's where your self-actualization start. And we can talk about this after the study. That is higher on the Maslow's theory. So mental well-being is people who feel like they're involved in self-realization and self-actualization. And these were the two outcome measures that were looked at. right? Does yoga improve your health related quality of life? Does yoga improve your mental well-being? So we know that from previous studies that yoga improves strength, it improves balance, it includes flexibility and mobility, right? Okay, let's go here. So this is boring for all of you guys, but I will just say this for the science people here, for Vartika Didi and all the other science people here. So this was an RCT, they went through Medline, Sinal, Embase, Cochrane, AMET, PsycInfo, Pedro, all the way from the beginning. जब भी कोई भी yoga के article published है, up till January 30th, 2017, there were a lot. यहाँ मैं थोड़ी सी आगे चली जाती हूँ. There were 2,269 papers मिले, उनमें से duplicates थे, duplicates निकाल के 1350 जो बचे, उनमें से record screen करके 1224 exclude किए, क्योंकि कुछ में meditation था, कुछ में pranayam था, कुछ में लोग, people were followed up for a less period of time. So out of that, full text articles assessed for eligibility, I go back here a little, were 126. उसमें से they excluded, अगर randomized control trial नहीं था, if people were less than 60 years, sometimes if they didn't have health related quality of life measures, mental well-being, no physical yoga, all of these were excluded. तो सबको exclude करके the best studies which meets all these criteria उनको 12 मिले. So this is a review of 12 papers, randomized control trial, जिसमें योगासन थे and health related quality of life देखा गया and mental well-being के measures थे, right? So participants between 60 to 75 थे, community से थे, ऐसे नहीं थे, hospital setting से थे, they were from all over, and some of them had multiple medical problems. Some people, एक study में people with breast cancer थे, colon cancer था, and then people had osteoarthritis, जो दर्दें होती है, back pain and all of that, Parkinson's disease, and people with multiple comorbidities. So it was not like they were like young and healthy and they were doing yogasanas. These were people just like us. So obviously they were not doing perfect yogasana. Like यहाँ पे कोई मयूरासन नहीं कर रहा था, right? They were just doing normal, however much they could do. And so control group था, intervention group था. Intervention group में participants 45 to 90 minutes of yogasan करते थे per session, 1 to 3 classes per week, every other day yogasan करते थे, and ये 8 to 24 weeks चला. So 3 दिन, हफ्ते में 3 दिन योगा, 6 महीने तक, and कुछ में home yoga program भी था. Control group में या तो कुछ नहीं थे, या तो फिर random ऐसे exercise करते थे, and then they used to have some counseling. That was the design of the study, and only physical yoga and meditation and breathing was included. Yoga style se Hatha Yoga, Yogasan, Vinyasa, Thai Yoga, Iyengar and Vini Yoga, or ye outcome measures the health related quality of life was measured in SF36 physical composite summary, jo bahut badi summary hai, in which they talk about that. Do you feel like you're physically healthy, socially healthy, mentally healthy, depression scores, right? And then mental well-being is WHO quality of life instrument, and I can talk about it, but I think most of you will get bored. So basically they just said कि आप खुश है अपने life से, अगर आप खुश है तो ये ABCDE questions को answer कीजिए और हम decide करेंगे कि आप है कि नहीं, right? So then let me do this. So this is just a list of कि कितना बड़ा study था, right? एक study था जिसमें Hatha Yoga कर रहे थे, तो 128 लोग थे, both male and female. और एक में I think they were doing Vini Yoga, तो 57 लोग थे. Iyengar Yoga में 88 people थे. Vini Yoga में again 118 people थे. बहुत ही well tolerated था. इतने सारे लोगों में I think totally आप मिलाएंगे तो 720 लोग थे. सिर्फ 2 लोग नी पेन की वजह से ड्रॉप आउट हुए, एक एब्डोमिनल पेन, एक ग्रॉइन पेन, हर्निया, व्हाटएवर, मसल सोरनेस एंड हिप पेन, राइट? इतने like 720 लोगों में, like maybe like this was all इतने ही लोग ड्रॉप आउट हुए, तो बहुत ही वेल टॉलरेटेड था. तो आई मीन ऑफ कोर्स ये बहुत अच्छी चीज है. हम अपने पेशेंट्स को मतलब जो भी आते हैं आसन सीखने के लिए, हम बोलते हैं कि अगर कोई प्रॉब्लम है तो डॉक्टर से बात कर लेना. दिस इज वेरी गुड, वी शुड डू इट. नहीं तो अमेरिका में तो आप सू करेंगे आपको. बट ये आप इस स्टडी को देख के ये भी समझ सकते हैं कि योगा बहुत वेल टॉलरेटेड है. अगर आप बोलेंगे कि थोड़ा सा कीजिए अपने आप को, डोंट पुश योरसेल्फ टू मच, स्पेशली विद बैक पेन, बट ट्राई एज मच एज यू कैन, एंड आई कैन थिंक यू कैन यूज दिस स्टडी टू सब्सटैंशिएट, राइट? लाइक इस स्टडी से पता चलता है कि ये बहुत वेल टॉलरेटेड था. तो ये this is math, so I will try to make it soon, and if anyone's interested I can talk to them in detail later. So this was does yoga have an effect on health related quality of life? And मैं थोड़ा सा समझाने की कोशिश करूंगी. ये जो बीच वाला ये है, 0 जो होता है उसका मतलब मेरे को योगा से कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ा, राइट? ये जो 0.5, 1 and 2 स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन टू द राइट है, अगर आपके स्कोर्स यहाँ पे आते हैं उसका मतलब मुझे योगा से पॉजिटिव इफेक्ट पड़ा. और अगर यहाँ पे -5, -0.5 एंड -1 आता है, यहाँ पे आता है, तो उसका मतलब योगा से मुझे प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है, राइट? या फिर मुझे कोई भी फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा है. तो आप देख सकते हैं कि स्टडी के जो ये कॉम्पोजिट एग्रीगेट्स है, पूल्ड एस्टिमेट्स है, वो सारे या तो यहाँ पे है या तो फिर पॉजिटिव साइड पे है. तो so there was a statistically significant medium effect from yoga on health related quality of life. Standard mean deviation was 0.51 and the confidence and the power was pretty good, right? So yoga did moderately improve, just asan se logon ki health related quality of life moderately improve hua and statistically significant effect tha. And then mental well-being, also the same thing, right? कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता इससे मुझे, you know, mentally I'm feeling well, just आसन से. मैं डिप्रेस थी, मैं खुश नहीं हूँ, पर मैं आसन कर रही हूँ 3 हफ्ते में 3 बार for 45 to 90 minutes, and मैं ये 6 महीने कर रही हूँ. तो उससे you can see there is a positive correlation, right? People felt like कि मुझे फर्क पड़ा इससे. And this standard mean deviation was 0.38, it was like slightly smaller. So there was a small but statistically significant effect on mental well-being, right? So yoga से quality of life, health related quality of life improve होता है, mental well-being improve होता है सिर्फ आसन से. And this is not even looking at meditation. So I think it improves balance, mobility, symptoms of depression. It's well tolerated. It's long term. It's a sustainable lifestyle change. Koi side effects nahi hote. Health professionals can confidently recommend it to improve quality of life. And this happens, right? In the US, we do this more and more, especially meditation. And Dr. Stephen Landu, jo Pashupati hai, wo prison mein bhi ye yoga sikhate hai. Of course, optimal dose kya hai, you know, कौन से आसन किस चीज के लिए करने चाहिए, intensity क्या होने चाहिए, इस पे research होना चाहिए. And I think Baba's way of saying that is also like talk to your acharya, right? Talk to your acharya about this, or like we should spend more time doing research on this. I think that is it. I don't have any more slides to share. So I'm going to stop sharing and happy to take any questions. And happy to translate, you know, if anyone has any points, happy to do this.
Didi, we have one question in the chat box.
How to overcome depression? That's it. So Mahesh, so I think if you think you're very depressed, or if someone thinks they're very depressed, then I would say first, sorry. I'll say it. Sorry, did someone say something? Okay, so if you think someone, you know, or if anyone is very depressed, then it is important to see a psychiatrist, but because sometimes you might need antidepressants, right? And this will get you from feeling very depressed to moderately depressed, because the effectiveness ratio of antidepressants is 40%. इतने ज़्यादा effective भी नहीं है. तो उसके बाद I would say, you know, there is a whole philosophy, and we can go back to that slide right now, which is based on mindfulness, really. You know, which is mindfulness is being aware in the moment, right? Which is really based on Lord Shiva's Vartamane Suvartate, like stay in the present, live in the present, don't live in the past, don't think about the future, right? So it is just making a lifestyle change. We know yogasanas make a difference. We know meditation makes a difference. So this is just my personal opinion. Sadhana is hard when you're depressed. Kirtan is not, right? It's not hard. Kirtan ke liye, you just have to get out of bed, put your hands up and dance, right? That's why it's called the chanting meditation. So Kirtan, asan, and a lifestyle change, like having a structure to your day, I think really helps. I mean, of course, if someone wants to talk more, I'm happy to talk, but yeah, and what Didi is right, long-term loneliness will lead to depression. So I think also working on relationships, but working on, you know, a sense of purpose, like giving, all of this helps with depression for sure.
So one question is from Usha Didi. is it possible to overcome depression without having medication? Because if
Yes.
somebody has taken the antidepressant for a few years,
Yes.
but still
Yes.
how to overcome this?
Yes. So I think it is important to not stop the antidepressant suddenly, because you could have withdrawal side effects. So this is what I tell my patients who are interested in yoga, right? Antidepressants, keep it. Start your lifestyle change now. Start asanas regularly, twice a day, 5 times a week. So आप इस study से भी ज़्यादा कर रहे हैं, right? 5 नहीं, actually बाबा बोलते हैं कि 7 times a day. But how much ever, like a little is better than none. अगर आप एक भी दिन करते हैं तो फर्क पड़ता है. मैंने अपनी, like I have seen it in my life, right? Like if you do koshki and asanas even one day, you feel better that day. So like, do not wait for you to do it perfectly. Do not wait for you to do bhujangasana or mayurasana perfectly. Do whatever you can. Do as little as you can. And then once you start, slowly, this will get better. Talk to your acharya. Talk to acharyas who read a little. You can find out who reads a little bit of yogic chikitsa. I think I talked to Vimlanand Dada. I'm sure there are a lot of other acharyas here who do a great job. Ashu Didi is here. A lot of people read and work in this field. Talk to them about which one is the best asana. And then try to do kirtan, try to do sadhana if you can. And then once you feel like you're a little better, then try to gradually get off the antidepressant. Depends कि कौन सा antidepressant ले रहे हैं, but over a period of 6 weeks to 6 months, आप antidepressant को safely आप decrease कर सकते हैं. So yes, it is possible to overcome depression off the antidepressants. In very, very rare cases, you might need antidepressants, right? Very rare cases. It doesn't matter. अगर antidepressants की जो side effect है, आपके आसन और कोश की take care कर रहा है, तो like क्या फर्क पड़ता है, right? Like people diabetes के लिए भी दवाई लेते हैं, thyroid के लिए दवाई लेते हैं. So think of antidepressants like that, but work on your life, right? Work on the lifestyle.
Yeah, the lifestyle modification is one of the most important part.
Absolutely.
The other question I can see here, the persons who are having some kind of addiction maybe of any kind, but they are also feeling loneliness and depression. So they are saying that अभी छोटे-छोटे बच्चे भी जो हैं, they are also affecting by this addiction, and doctors को दिखाते हैं, but there is no benefit. आदत से मजबूर है. तो for that क्या किया जा सकता है?
Yeah, that's the hardest stuff. I'm not an addiction specialist for sure, but I think that's the hardest thing right now, addiction, right? And addiction leads to a sense of loneliness because every culture frowns upon addiction, every religion frowns upon addiction. So pehle to hum kar lete hai, right? Like people drink, people do whatever they have to do, and then there is such a sense of guilt. They're not able to talk to anyone. They feel like they're disappointing. Ye jo hum sense of purpose ki baat kar rahe hain na, that is completely shattered, right? Like, so no sense of purpose, a huge sense of guilt. They're completely depressed. I feel a lot of reading, right? A lot of satsang, and it's okay, right? Like there are huge examples, like Valmiki was Daku Valmiki. There was Angulimal, and in the Christian mystics, St. Augustine was a libertine. There are lots of examples of people whose lives were completely miserable, and then they completely changed them. They would need to do much more intense asana, much more intense yogic practices. So I would say a lot of reading, a lot of surrounding yourself with good ideas, good people that don't make you feel so guilty, but motivate you. And just knowing that addiction is not a straight journey, right? You will be fine for 6 months, and then maybe you'll just go back, and that's fine. We fall, and this is why I feel like Baba says, if you're a naughty boy, I pick you up, I dust your clothes, and I sit you on my lap, right? He knows we are naughty. Like he doesn't think we are perfect, and we are not. And it's okay. Like in Baba's house or whoever, in Shiva's house, in Krishna's house, or whoever we are all welcome. And we are all imperfect. Like some compassion to yourself, some reading, and definitely a disciplined lifestyle. Because I think without discipline, it's impossible to get rid of bad habits. However, I'm not an expert. I can read back and come back to you personally if anyone has any, Yeah,
Devi. One more question. Does depression lead to schizophrenia?
Good question. So depression does not lead to schizophrenia, but if depression is untreated for a long time, people can have psychotic symptoms. So ये जो schizophrenia के symptoms होते हैं, जिसको हम पागलपन बोलते हैं, which Baba makes a mention of in Vichitra Strange Experiences, right? Vichitra अभी गया था. people can hear voices when there is no one around. People can see strange things, like, so these are symptoms of schizophrenia. So depression doesn't lead to schizophrenia, but people can have these symptoms. But if you go back and treat the symptoms, then if you go back and treat depression, then those symptoms go away. So depression does not lead to schizophrenia. It can look like schizophrenia if it's not treated, and catatonia, but that's all if you treat the depression with medications, or sometimes ECT, electroconvulsive therapy. And then if you can maintain this good health with asana and, sadhana or kirtan, then I think it's very, very treatable. It's very treatable with medications itself, but yeah.
Yeah. Is self-doubt and low self-esteem is part of depression? And
Yes.
if it is, then how to deal with it?
Yeah. So self-doubt and low self-esteem can be a part of life, and it can be a part of depression, right? So the way I would say to distinguish between both of them is this self-doubt and self-esteem associated with the cluster of symptoms, right? Like, is it associated with low sleep, appetite nahi hai, you're not happy, you're not able to enjoy anything, then I would say it's a part of depression. If not, it is just sometimes life. We're surrounded by people that are not good for us, but we can't run away. So I would say try to make an effort to surround yourself with people that are positive and encouraging, be your mothers or your sisters or your acharyas, or people that build you up. And then try to read and try to get a sense of where this low self-doubt is coming from. Yahan pe I would tell people to go into therapy, but like I think Margis have an inbuilt therapy, right? Like, just we have the great psychologist guiding all of us, and his books are amazing therapy for me every day. So I would say try to do that, and if nahi, to fir thoda sa to counseling seek kar lijiye.
Yeah, Didi, you're right, because bhakt ke liye to depression and anxiety and such kind of things are koi uski baat hi prashna hi nahi uthta hai. But similarly, is question aaya hai ki how can we help those people who are non-Margis and who are not following any Kaushiki yoga meditation, and even if they are not at all interested to do all these things, then how can we help them?
So I think there is a lot of study. Okay, first of all, yoga is not an Anand Margi thing. That's why I wanted to present it, right? Yoga is now an accepted psychological well-being tool. So agar wo Anand Margi nahi hai, spiritual bhi nahi hai, to yoga karna chahiye unko, unless they really hate spirituality because somebody has imposed it on them, they really should do yoga. I mean, you would be stupid not to do yoga, right? Like, why not, right? But let's say that's not something you can do, you're not flexible enough. There is evidence that exercise, increased exercise, regular exercise, good diet, healthy diet, not eating fried stuff and bacons and hamburgers, just like good portions of fruit and vegetables, and a structured life. मतलब बिल्कुल कि आपको 7 o'clock उठना है, 8 o'clock breakfast खाना है, 9 o'clock whatever, office अगर आप नहीं जाएंगे, retired है, पर अगर आपको office जाना है 9 to 5, you go to office, you take bath, 5 o'clock you come back, you do whatever, right? Like if you don't meditate, if you don't do yoga, whatever, you read or you go out for a walk, having a structure every day in your life helps depression. So structure, physical activity, good diet, all of these help. Yeah, and a sense of purpose, right? Like contributing, altruism, positive psychology helps a bit.
Didi Danvrata has asked some question. Does it really help to go to a psychiatrist when you are depressed? Because my personal feeling is that if you go to a psychiatrist, you feel that you have something wrong.
Yeah, so that's correct. First of all, namaskar, Didi Danvrata. It's really lovely to hear from you after such a long time. So, Didi, I agree. So I think there is a lot of scholarship on the fact that, ek to depression biological hoti, and that is true. We have to accept it. Sometimes our brain just makes the less serotonin. That is there. But that is a small percentage, right? That's a small percentage. Most people, depression is a way of saying something's wrong with your life and I don't like it. Your mind is saying, your lifestyle, I'm not happy with it, change it, right? And that is where you go to a therapist and you sit. A therapist doesn't tell you anything. A therapist is just a mirror to you. You talk about your stuff, you figure out what you want to do. And a therapist is just a cheerleader, right? Like if you feel like I have someone, which was Baba to a lot of us, right? Like the LG meetings and the RDS and the ACBs were really like all of us going to our therapist and saying, what did I do? What did I do? That dande bhi padte the. And so this is if you think you have someone to answer to, you're more motivated to do something. So I feel like, yes, depression is mostly what you're doing in your life is not in touch with your values, and it needs a lifestyle change. However, there is a small percentage of people where it's biological and you need to see a psychiatrist and you need treatment. Or sometimes life has gone so wrong that just asanas, you cannot even do it. You cannot do sadhana when you're anxious, right? You have racing mind. So I think at that point, agar aap, if you're having suicidal thoughts, then as a society, it's very important for us to get from there to moderately depressed, and then you start doing these asanas. So I don't think we should have a negative feeling towards being a psychiatrist, at least good psychiatrist. And then once that's there, once they're a little controlled, then they can start doing all of these lifestyle changes. But most of the people can get better with lifestyle changes itself. So I agree with you.
Didi, another question is that how would you help someone else who is depressed, but he refuses outside help? We want to help, but he refuses.
Yeah.
Then how to manage that kind of thing?
Yeah, I would say gentle, constant reminder. I don't know if my mother would be happy. My mom is she's super bhagat. She's very great. She doesn't do great asanas. So every time I talk to her, I don't do it gently, but I hammer it down her throat. So I think, but don't do what I do. But I think gently just telling them that you're there for them and that they need to make a change. One day he won't listen to you, twice he won't, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, right? Like this is not a stone, right? Ye patthar to nahi hai. Like aap pani rose dalenge, to patthar mein bhi, right? Like there you can like carve holes. So I think if you put it like every day, don't expect results soon. It might take time. And mostly it comes from feeling guilty and disappointing everyone, right? And just like telling them that they're valuable, you love them, but they need to make a change. I think gently.
Yeah, constant hammering is important.
Yeah,
right.
gentle. Yeah.
Any pre-depression symptoms like short-temperedness or person is moving towards irritability? Does it indicate pre-depression symptoms?
It can, but it could be a lot of other things too. I would say it's important to rule out like hyperthyroidism. It's important to rule out any physical irritability. Can be because of various reasons. Could also be that we're angry and life is throwing a lot of things with us. It could also be depression. It's a broad category. Any food that can help. I would say anything that is sentient, right? And when I say sentient, like I can say for myself, I eat sattvic food, but it's really not sattvic, right? Like it's fried and there's a lot of sugar in it and like puria and kachoris. So like good fruits, vegetables as much as possible. I mean, of course, at night you can't eat raw food. It has to be cooked. I would go to Yogic Chikitsa if you have the electronic edition and just go depression, right? And you can see Baba makes a mention of a lot. And there's also, he talks about a herb that you can tie to your little arm. And I think if Ashu Didi is here, she knows what it is.
Yeah, there's a plan.
What is it? Oh, you know.
But I don't remember it now. But yeah, Ashu Didi has worked on it.
Definitely. Yes. Right. So I can text it to you guys. So there is an herb that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would just say sentient food. And I can't think, there is that herb. I can't think of anything else that would help with the depression itself. Vartika Didi, Ashu Didi, I mean, whoever can talk about that. I would say, however,
And any scientific studies showing the relationship between food and the effect on the depression? Any positive correlation?
We don't do a lot of good job with preventive medicine. I don't think there's much about food. I mean, I think there are a lot of studies about processed foods and cancer. And just like sort of like, decreased mental well-being and obesity. But depression itself, I don't think there is. I do think Baba kind of talks about constipation being constipation leads to a lot of diseases, right? So one of them, I think if you're sluggish and you're constipated, then I think it can increase a sense of irritability or decreased well-being. So then maybe a little haritaki, that's all I can think of. It's not directly related, but sorry, you don't have an answer to that.
And how do we acknowledge failure as students, and how to handle anxiety and panic attacks?
Baba talks about this in detail in yoga psychology. So please, everyone read it. So Baba actually talks openly about suicides, right? And then he, in one of the, I can tell you what he talked, I can tell you, if not, I can send this quotation, I can send where he talks about a relative of his, or a son of a relative that committed suicide in strange experiences. Sorry. He talks about a young boy that committed suicide. And then he talks to him about why he did that. And because he failed his exams, right, multiple times. And then he felt useless. And then he hung himself. And Baba says, if only we had told him that it is fine to fail, just work harder next time. It's fine. It's fine, right? We all fail. It's a lie that nobody fails, right? You might not fail in your exams, but you might fail in life. You might fail in social relationships. So I think it is important to push your children, but when they don't do fine, like just to give them a hug and say, fine, nahi hua, for whatever reason, work harder next time, or just work smarter, or, maybe do more asana and kirtan and sadhana or whatever, read a little more, spend a little more time, just work harder. And that story we all hear, right? Like, try until you succeed. So it's fine. It is fine to fail. Get up, dust your stuff and work again. And sometimes if they say, I don't want to do this, I want to do something else, it could be for two reasons, right? One, they are trying to escape this painful thing. In that case, it's fine to say, no, don't run away from this. It's important for you to stay on this and work hard. But sometimes they have come to the realization that this is not what they want to do, right? They're not good at this, but there's something else they're good at. Like they might never be a good IAS officer, but they would be a very good history professor. And at that time, it is okay for us. We should encourage whatever they want to do. Right? We need a lot of good history professors. We need a lot of good primary research scientists like you, Vartika Didi. We need a lot of good people doing a lot of other stuff. So I think Baba talks a lot about this in yoga psychology, about how to deal with students that fail. Equivocally, it is tell them it's okay to fail and then motivate them to work harder next time.
One question is from Facebook Live. Anger and depression, do they go together?
Anger and depression, do they go together? Doesn't have to. Anger could be a lot of other things too. You could be angry when you're depressed, but just the fact that you're angry doesn't mean you're depressed. Anger comes from hurt, yes. Can also come from a sense of entitlement. But anger, there is some scholarship on the fact that anger is incredibly harmful to your mental well-being. So I think anger needs to be worked on.
One question is that is yoga and sadhana a temporary relief or a permanent cure for any problem?
Oh my God. It's not a temporary relief. It's the only permanent cure, right? The problem with yoga and asana and sadhana is you have to do it every day. Like that's the problem. But it's not. It's the only cure with no side effect. And it changes the way you think, right? Especially Kirtan, I can say this, and there's no evidence, but I can go look it up. I mean, we should be working on all of this stuff. I have seen it in my own life that 45 minutes of Kirtan can change you from having a very negative, like, why did I take this responsibility? I'm just going to go in and talk to them and resign, to 45 minutes of Kirtan where you're like, I think I can do this. I think it's hard. I will learn, but I can do this. So I think it is there is a saying that suicide is a temporary cure, permanent cure for a temporary problem, right? So I would turn it the other way and say, like, yoga and asanas and sadhana, spirituality is a permanent cure for a lot of life's temporary problems. You have to do it. I have seen people do it for a short period of time, likely me, and still benefit from it. But I think it's a lifestyle change, right? It is. I also see a question by Dada Amrit
Krishna. What is the spiritual approach and scientific approach to overcome loneliness and depression? Actually, this is the...
Yeah, I think Baba's approach, so this is what I get from reading from here and there. Baba is a huge proponent of polypathy. So the way some of us Margis are very rigid, right? Like we're like, oh, avoid English medicine. And I think Baba wasn't. He believed in homeopathy, allopathy, Ayurveda, whatever, right? Like whatever works to get you to a certain level where you can do asanas and where you can have a sentient lifestyle. But really depression in what I feel can come from many things, right? One of them is like sometimes it's a past janma samskara, or it's a samskara that you have to tolerate until it goes. Sometimes, in major percentage of the times, it is we're doing something wrong, right? Your body remembers some more sentient lifestyle than you're giving it, and it is throwing a tantrum. So you have to get back to sadhana. You have to get back to the spiritual quest. And sometimes it is, and the Japanese have this system from Chen meditation, which we know from Baba. Zen meditation is from Chen, which is from Dhyan, right? Where they would feel like their rulers had to have certain degree of melancholia, which in Sanskrit is vairagya. If you didn't have a certain degree of vairagya or melancholia, you were not a good king. And this melancholia is something that we all come with inherent, right? Because what we have here is not enough for us. We want that great. We want like anantam anandam, right? Like we want like this, like forever sukha. So I feel like some degree of depression is something we're all born with, and that can only be quenched by obtaining tat sthiti, right? Yeah, no, I'd be interested in knowing what you think to that.
Yeah. And I think one more question is there. Is it possible for those who are having antidepressants to lead a normal married life with multiple responsibilities? Because a similar kind of question has also come.
What's the question? Sorry, Vartika Didi, can you repeat the question?
Just a moment, Didi. If we are taking antidepressant, so how to lead a normal married life with many multiple responsibilities?
Yes, antidepressants can have certain side effects for sure, but you can always go back to your doctor and say, I'm having this sort of problem. Can I change it? If that's what you're talking about. But depression decreases your functioning. Yes. I think it is important for people around you to understand that at this point you're depressed, but you're working on it. But you also need to show them that you're working on it, right? Like you can't be in your bed for like 14 hours a day and then get up and eat your food and then mope about, right? So I think the family needs to be supportive, but you also need to show them that you're working on your depression. Like you're up, you're doing your asanas, you're doing your sadhana, you're eating, you're going, you're doing whatever you can do until you get better. And then once you get better, slowly your functioning will improve. Does that make sense?
And I think another similar kind of personal experience has also come up in the chat box that she's a mother of 2 kids, and second one is a 2 years old baby. And so the day-to-day life is very hectic, and even she can't manage, she can't wake up early. She's feeling like she's captured in a cage. No one is going to help him, a single working. So, and she knows that I should enjoy what I'm doing at present, but still how to come out of all those feelings. Because nobody's there to help, nobody's there to support.
Yes, absolutely. I will absolutely answer that question. But Jyotishri Didi HU, thank you for this quote. I completely agree, and I completely forgot. Baba talks about certain Prabhat Sangeets which can lift you up from melancholia, which can take you into melancholia, like spiritual melancholia. There are certain Prabhat Sangeets, if you listen to every day, that will lead to a decrease in depression. So that's very important. Thank you for bringing this up, which is why he talks about the Rava, the Renaissance movement. So that is also something. Kirtan, I know, can elevate you. I mean, you don't have to do it, like put it on and then get about your daily life. But there are certain Prabhat Sangeets. I don't know which one they are. I can get back to you on that. Coming back to the Vartika Didi's question. Yes, when you have 2 small children and you don't have help, I mean, it's hard, right? I mean, I had help. My mother was here, and it is hard. Life is hectic, but I think that's why we have second lesson, right? First of all, it's hard. Just survive. It's okay. You're raising 2 kids. You're doing Baba's job, right? Like you're doing a big job, and you're doing it without help. And Vimlan and Dada used to tell me this, and I will tell you this. I will impart his knowledge. When life got really hard and hectic, he would say, Baba is watching. And my grandfather says this too. Baba is watching. He knows. He will take care of you. And this is true. This is true, right? Like I also live alone. I don't have 2 kids. I have 1 kid, and I work a full-time job, and I have to manage the house, and it can be very hectic. So I think just knowing, and it's hard, I'm not taking away from it. It's hard. Just knowing that he's watching, and 2, it will pass. It will pass, right? Like all of us who are mothers and who work full-time, know that this will pass. So try to enjoy it, but if you can't enjoy it, it's okay. Put on the kirtan, do whatever you're doing, put on something on TV, whatever you enjoy, and take second lesson and try to do this. Do 80 times japa, Guru Puja, it's fine. And then when you can, then pranayama, and they can all come later. So just Guru Skash, 80 times japa, Guru Puja. I don't know. I think there are dadas and didis on this forum. They might disagree, and I'm happy to let them talk about it. But sometimes when life is hard, you just have to survive. Just survive. Things will change. I mean, the good thing about going through a low phase in life is it's temporary. The bad thing about going through something high phase in life is also it's temporary, right? Like change is constant. It will change. That's true. But Ashadidi, that's true. Baba mentions music therapy. That's correct.
And Ashadidi has also written the name of that herb, Sida cordifolia. That is Bala.
Perfect. What is it? Ashadidi, what's it?
Sida cordifolia. SIDA. Sida cordifolia, Bala.
Bala is
Bala. Yeah. This is the name of that herb.
Perfect.
And
yeah.
Rajendra Dada has also told that fasting also helps, and he is also telling that he can also add some more points to this.
Yes, I agree. Please go ahead, Dada.
Yeah, please, Dada.
Yes, Namaskar, Didi. So I wanted to say that there was a condition in my life. I gave a challenge. I took 2 doses, and then I was so uncomfortable. Then I fought with Baba that I'm taking challenge. I will not take medicine, So that is what I mentioned. Fasting is such a beautiful thing. Next day when you detox, it gives you strength good enough to fight back.
Yeah.
That is personal experience. Secondly, I wanted to mention that Prabhat Sangeet, which you just mentioned, I wanted to tell that.
Yes.
And Prabhat Sangeet, if you can sing of your choice, and you can cry in front of Baba, that is second point.
Yeah.
It gives beautiful relief. The third is, you rightly mentioned that if you do Guru Puja, and my experience is in final prostration, if you stay for minutes there, stay there for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It gives such a beautiful relief. I cannot correlate the medical science behind that, but that gives relief.
I completely agree. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Dada.
The fourth point is, Baba has already said that you have to develop personal relation with him. And he is mentioning few points that always talk to me. Don't do anything without asking me. If you can relate this thing, there is no other cure, and I'm sure one will be cured of it.
I agree. I don't know if there's a correlation to this, right? But I think if you cry in your sadhana or in the Guru Puja, or if you cry in front of Baba, I have also anecdotally noticed that you do feel better immediately afterwards. So I completely agree. I think the sadness goes away. And I think, this tantra is not magical, right? It's a science. And I think we cannot hope that he's always listening to us and always taking care of us, right? Because I mean, there's a way to make sure he's taking care of us. And I think
That
Guru Puja is
confidence has to there, yes, that he's
Yeah,
always
yeah,
there
and-
with me.
exactly. And Guru Puja is a way of saying, listen, I drop this at your feet. Like Tera tujhko arpan, right?
Even you
I-
can fight with him, that gives you relief. That's the
Absolutely.
wonderful thing.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree.
Thank you, Didi. That's so much I wanted to mention additional.
No, perfectly. Thank you. Thank you, Dada. Perfect.
Thank you
I
so
think-
much, Dada.
So much to
One
be-
question. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
From Chavi, how to overcome social anxiety, like extreme fear of being judged in social situations?
Yeah, so I think that's called social phobia. It's also like an extreme manifestation of laja, right? Which is a an vritti. There are ways. I'll say it just because I'm a psychiatrist, and I know a lot of a lot of people will disagree with me here. There are medications that help you with that. However, that is a shortcut. It's not sustainable, and you can have side effects. So exposure, right? Talking at small. I mean, starting small, talking to your family members, or like preparing a lot for whatever you have to do, and then going out, trying with smaller group, bigger group, bigger group, bigger group would help you. Exposure helps control this fear. And there are, I think, some asanas which work on the Manipur chakra. Please talk to your acharya, because this fear mostly comes from the Manipur chakra. So I think it can help, but yeah, there are some medications that can help too, just for social situations. But don't stop going into social situations just because you do have anxiety, because the more you lock yourself in, the stronger the anxiety will become. Yeah, Vani, I also went to a hostel. And I feel like, there were times where I just ate rasam because I had a very good cook who would make rasam and rice and dahi. Yeah, chapatis with rice and curds. It's being tough for me. How should I manage? I know it's easy for me to say this, but I think you're young, right? And I think I'm older. Baba is watching. He will reward you for this sacrifice. That, it's a very dogmatic way of saying this, but I have seen this. Like, if you're strong in your diet, and it's a little bit dogmatic, but I have seen that you are rewarded. Like, you're meant, and this is the thing that I was talking about fasting, right? There is a lot of evidence about fasting, and Vartika Didi and Asha Didi, we were all in a group, which is Scientific Forum. We're not doing a lot of work on that. There was KN Dada who actually presented this paper about like fasting and autophagy. So fasting has two effects, right? One is it improves your physical body with autophagy. It also increases your determination, right? And discipline, which is very important. So I think what you're doing is you're exercising your determination. You're exercising your discipline. You're telling your body and your mind that you're stronger. Like, your mind wants to eat all these like great food, but like, you are stronger. And this is hard. I would say try to talk to your cook and tell him, like in my case, my cook was a Brahmin and he thought I was a Brahmin. I didn't correct him. And so like he would try to make little things without onion and garlic. They were not tasty. They were terrible, but we ate and it was okay, right? So try it. If not, try to pack something from whatever your mother gives you, brings you. And sometime once in a while, if you eat something out of like, just because you want to, it's fine. Take some haritaki, do Guru Puja once in a while, and let it go. But we have a compassionate, understanding Guru. But I think the more discipline you exercise, you will definitely be rewarded for it. So like, pat yourself on the back, be very proud. You're a very good Magi. Talk to any one of us. I'm happy to cheerlead you. We've all been through this, and you can do it. That's true.
That's very true, Didi.
Yeah.
Though it's very tough, but of course,
It's
she will be
tough.
rewarded definitely.
It's tough. Yes. I have
The
two-
other thing is,
Right.
if you are recovering and doing sadhana and yoga, but after that you encounter someone who tell you is discouraging you, then how to deal with those people?
So this is when Baba talks about phases of spiritual progress, right? Yatamana Vyatireka. So this is your first stage of sadhana, where you're encountering obstacles from outside. I would say talk about the benefit. There is evidence, right? I can email these papers to my mother and she can send it out to the group. I can email it to Asha Didi, Vartika Didi. Talk about the benefits of yoga that's been published, right? And then if people don't understand, that's okay. That's okay. Do not engage in negativity and keep doing what you're doing. You will get through this phase pretty soon, right? You will get from the first phase to the second phase. This is your yatamana. This means you're actually progressing on the path of spirituality. And so good job, keep doing it. It will go away. People will finally accept that you're not going to give up, that they're not big enough for you to care about them, right? And you're not going to change your life for someone else. Your life is yours. Keep doing it. Don't give up. Because then if you give up, after some time, life will, like, it kicks us all, and then you'll have to do all of it, and you'll have to go through the same thing again. So don't give up.
Right, Didi.
Yeah. Meera Didi, I am that child, or at least I was that child, right? I'm a night owl, and my mother would always talk about like waking up early in the morning. I agree. Waking up early in the morning is good. There is some evidence, and I can come back and talk to you sometime about like circadian rhythms. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, for now, when you're young, your body can get used to it. It doesn't lead to any mental health problems. I mean, anxiety ho sakta hai, it can lead to some anxiety, but that's fine. Whatever works for them, but just make sure that they do some kirtan or some, whatever they can do, little kirtan or guru puja and some sadhana, so that they're like, centered in they're getting some spiritual food. But that's okay. When you're young, it shouldn't lead to depression.
Thank you so much, Didi.
Thank you.
That's wonderful, Didi. And I think some comments are also there regarding the depression due to individualism. As we all know, the base of depression could be many things. Why depression happens? The reason of depression, you said that biological is one reason in some people, but there are certain other things also which are leading people towards depression. And the capitalism and all those things, they are one of the, I think they are reasons in some people. So we have to work out on so many platforms so that the things can't come. But of course, if someone is having it, then we have to follow the sanctioned food, the strict our lifestyle, and all those yoga asanas and meditation, and then pranayam. And of course, if we need help, we should go to doctor and then take the help from them, the medical help, the professional help. Of course, that is important. So that was
Sorry. No, I agree with Didi. I also, Shrija Muralidharan said, less sleep sadhana compensates. This is true. This is also something that Baba talks about. Yeah, no, thank you. That is true. If for some reason you're sleeping less, if you do sadhana, like I don't know if this is true. I haven't read this anywhere, but I heard this from my mother that 1 hour of sadhana is equal to 2 hours of sleep. So like, I think if you're not getting enough sleep, if you do sadhana, I don't know how much young people can do sadhana. I certainly could do kirtan. So like, I feel like it can compensate. That's true too. That is true. And Dada, you had some point. Rajendra Dada, you had some point. You said you wanted to add. Please go ahead.
Dada has given us all those points, starting from fasting. So all those things we should keep in mind. And of course, the thing is that for Margis, we know the complete therapy is for us, starting from Prabhat Sangeet and Kirtan and meditation and second lesson, first lesson, everything is for us. But of course, for other people, there are a lot more things should be done by us, of course, in many spheres. So that's wonderful, Didi, and wonderful insight. And the compilation of those studies, they're very important, that loneliness and how depression and how the relationships किस तरीके से ये जो है सोशल एंगेजमेंट हम लोगों को हेल्प करेगा इन सब इस साइकिल को तोड़ने में. So it's very important. I think some more questions are just coming out from I think YouTube chat also. how to
Yeah, so-
manage fasting, how to manage fasting with physical work job.
So I do this, Sneha, this is true. So this is what I do. So Baba said you could fast on the day or one day before or one day after, right? So try to manage it closer to the weekend. If like the fasting is on Thursday, do it on Friday so you can break. It's the breaking, right? Like fasting, you can still manage. I noticed that the hunger for water is only there in the first half of the day. So right, like you wake up between like 8 to 12, you're like, oh, I need water, and then it goes away. You can see that, right? So fasting is not a problem with your work day. It's the breaking, right? Baking, making sure you're cleaning and the khichdi and making sure everyone is fed. So like do it closer to the weekend if you can, or do it closer to a day where there's a holiday. I've also done this. I don't know. I talked to your acharya about it. If let's say the fasting was on Tuesday, I have done the fasting on Friday. Like I might not get the lunar benefits, right? Like my mind would still be logged with water, but I would still get the discipline, right? Like I'm still getting the determination and discipline, and I would still get spiritual benefit. Like it's for Dagda Bija, right? Like you're doing your fasting for Dagda Bija, to burn your seed of desire. You're still doing it. You're just not getting the physical benefit. So try to do it closer to the weekend. True that, yeah.
Yeah, right, Didi. Weekends, breaking of fasting on weekends, that is more important, because I have also feeling this, that if we do fasting on the working day, that is better. Even if we are at home, then it is very difficult to do fasting. It's better than when we are at work.
At work,
place
when you're busy, exactly.
Yeah, when you're busy, that's
Because you're not thinking,
better.
right? Yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
that's very good.
Better to be busy. Yeah.
And yeah, Asha Didi, definitely, we definitely want from Tapsi Didi more sessions and more sessions on means each part, single part. I would say that depression and its various facets, like bipolar syndrome, and there are many things, panic attacks and anxiety itself. It's a big thing. Anxiety on very petty issues are also there. There are some anxieties, and even the dilemma, the ability to decide, or how to decide, when to decide, what to decide, means there are many mental aspects on which we will be enlightened with your expertise. So thank you so much, Didi. And I think one concern. Yeah, Sunita Didi has one more thing she has written.
Yes, Sunita Schrappler. Yeah, I agree. Right? I think we all do that. We don't want to look inwards because it's hard, right? Who wants to change? None of us do. But I agree. I think like just ranting at him and raving at him and fighting with him and then just trying to figure out where he wants us to be. I think, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Didi. And now I would like to invite Avzutika Anandprabha Acharya Didi for official vote of thanks. Over to Anandprabha Didi.
Anandprabha Didi. Didi, unmute. Didi, you are muted.
Yeah, now it is. Okay, thank you. Namaskar, everyone. And namaskar, Dr. Tapsi. Actually, yeah, we all know that nowadays the tension, this depression, anxiety, it is very common problems in life, no? And today's class is very, very needful. I think it will help everyone. And on behalf of GPIF, I am Anand Prabhacharya, thankful to Dr. Tapsi, and she gave us much time to us. And I know she has a busy life. Still then she gave her consent to her request and gave class. So many thanks to Dr. Tapsi. Really, thank you very much. And I hope she will always help us also in future, giving these classes when we need, and we always invite you to give classes. Thank you very much. Namaskar, and namaskar everyone also.
Thank you very much, Didi. It's a privilege. Sorry, it's a privilege, and for everyone, of course, but definitely GPIF ladies taking care of ladies is just amazing. It's an honor, and I'm happy to come back. I'm happy to come back and talk about fasting and its benefits of health someday. But no, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tapsi Didi. Really such a wonderful session, and maybe I hope people will really get benefited to your session. And मैं खुद भी आपके बहुत सारे चीजों से एग्री करती हूँ. मेरा लाइफ काफी टफ था, एंड बाबा का जो सिस्टम है और डिसिप्लिन है, उसके बाद काफी चेंजेस आए. लाइक नॉट ओनली सिटिंग, ओनली पूजा, एंड इट इज enough for us. Follow complete regime, fasting, asana, systematic morning, like Panchjanya, all is very necessary in our life and changing our life system. And all these word like depression, anxiety, stress, loneliness, ये सारे just word ही होंगे, इसका कोई importance नहीं होगा हमारे life में और कोई effect नहीं होगा, जैसा मैं अपने आप लाइफ में देख चुकी हूँ. तो थैंक यू तापसी दीदी. बट अगेन कुछ जैसे आप डॉक्टर हैं और आपके बातों का वैल्यू ज्यादा लोगों तक जाता है, तो हम लोग चाहेंगे कि आप दोबारा फिर कभी अगर ऐसा कुछ सेशन की जरूरत हो तो आप जरूर आए. और अगेन मुझे एक और रिक्वेस्ट आपसे करना है कि फूड पे हम लोग चाहते हैं कि फॉर चिल्ड्रन, इन्फेंट, जो न्यू बॉर्न बेबी आफ्टर 6 मंथ, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ डाइट दे फॉलो. सो इस पे बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट है एक क्लास और सेशन. सो हम मेरा रिक्वेस्ट है आपसे कि इफ यू गॉट टाइम और इफ यू गेट some give us some time to for this type of session, so it we will privilege for it.
Absolutely happy to do it, Didi. But I have to tell you, credit where credit is due. My mother really, when my son was small, made it possible. क्योंकि लिखा तो है fruit and milk, right? पर पता नहीं होता. But I don't know if she's here. She really devised this system, and I think we should talk about this. I'm happy to talk about this. I want to, because I feel like a lot of us have young kids and we want to give them a sentient diet, right? But
Sure.
the more we exclude nutrition, भी तो चाहिए, उनके bones भी तो बढ़ रहे हैं, like उनका brain बढ़ रहा है. We want to make sure that they eat good sentient diet, but they also grow to be strong and healthy, right? Absolutely happy to do that. And Ashu Didi is here. I mean, everyone here. I think we should all do.
Yeah, Ashu Didi also given us time, but again we want to you, and even Manjula Didi always guiding us, and really even so many what Manjula Didi has shared us, even guided so many mothers to give that kind of food like root, fruit, milk and dry fruit, some type of, and really it's wonderful to, I mean, it's the growth of child. Even I seen my sister also following that kind of food, and really their brain and development is means looking different between the other kids who having like normal food like khichdi, chapati, like cooked food, and root, fruit and milk. So really it's wonderful if you come sometime and give us with your busy schedule.
Happy to do it.
So thank you, and thank you Vartika Didi. आपने बहुत ही अच्छे से आज का सेशन को संभाला, एंड तापसी दीदी और जितने आप लोग सारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स लोग ज्वाइन किए. इवन इतना ज्यादा रश था कि 100 से ज्यादा हम लोगों के पास कैपेसिटी नहीं थी, एंड पीपल आर राइटिंग एंड डिमांडिंग कि मैं कहाँ से देखूं. इवन इट वाज लाइव ऑन FB, एंड वहाँ भी more than 50 people were there. So it was really such a wonderful session. Thank you तापसी. इतने बिजी शेड्यूल के बाद आपने हम लोगों को अपना टाइम दिया, और मैं चाहूंगी कि अगर इन फ्यूचर कभी अगर आपके पास टाइम हो, हम लोग जरूर कांटेक्ट करेंगे, और अदर टॉपिक्स पे भी हम लोग चाहेंगे कि कुछ अगर ओल्ड एज, जैसे मैंने बहुत ओल्ड एज लोगों को भी देखा है कि जनरली एक एज के बाद, सर्टेन एज के बाद कुछ डिप्रेशन और इस तरह के प्रॉब्लम देखा जाता है और वो चाहते नहीं है कि डॉक्टर के पास जाए। तो उस कंडीशन में भी किस तरीके से उनको हैंडल किया जाए, या फिर तो इस पे थोड़ा सा अगर आप कुछ बताना चाहेंगे तो।
या नहीं, बिल्कुल। एक क्वेश्चन है, नहीं रविंद्र सिंह दादा, ये साइकाइट्री से रिलेटेड नहीं है पर मैं आंसर करूंगी। यहाँ पे दादा दीदी आए, वो मेरे से ज्यादा बोल पाएंगे। बट ये बाबा बोलते हैं ये संस्कार की एग्जॉशन शुरू होता है, राइट? जब हम बुरा कर रहे होते हैं तो वो फ्रूट इट हैज नॉट राइपन्ड, वो जो संस्कार है वो राइपन नहीं हुए होते। तो आप कलेक्ट करे तो आपके साथ अच्छा हो रहा है। बट जब आप अच्छा करना शुरू करते हैं और आप जिस दिन आप अपने इष्ट मंत्र लेते हैं तो आप यू स्टार्ट वॉर, राइट? यूर अ स्पिरिचुअल वॉरियर। आप जीव से शिव बनने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, राइट? यूर ट्राइंग टू बी द मास्टर ऑफ प्रकृति, यूर ट्राइंग टू बी bigger than what guides you, right? So then you will be hit, right? फिर आपके संस्कार राइपन होंगे और आपके जो बुरे चीजें थे वो बुरे कर्म स्टार्ट करेंगे। तो यूजुअली जब हमारे साथ बुरा होता है तो हम भगवान को कोसते हैं, राइट? स्पिरिचुअल लोग, बाकी सारे लोग तो इट्स डिफरेंट। तो एटलीस्ट वेस्ट में वो है कि वो पर्सनल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लेते हैं। तो हम इंडिया में अच्छी भी चीज है, बुरी भी है कि हम भगवान को कोसने लगते हैं। तो इट इज जस्ट आवर कर्मा। तो हम अपने कर्म भर रहे हैं, वी माइट एज वेल फिनिश इट, डू गुरु पूजा, ड्रॉप इट एट द लॉर्ड ऑफ शिवा और कृष्णा, बाबा, एंड मूव ऑन, राइट? लाइक हो रहा है, वी कैन टॉलरेट इट। हम अपने आप को इतना स्ट्रांग बनाए कि हम इसको टॉलरेट करें और जाएगा। लाइक दिस टू शैल पास, कुछ भी रहता नहीं है।
Exactly. Thank you so much, Didi, and really GPF grateful to you to join us. And अगर एक और कोई दादा हैंड रेज किए थे, अगर है अभी अवेलेबल तो पूछ सकते हैं क्वेश्चन, अदरवाइज काफी टाइम हो गया तो हम लोग आज का सेशन ओवर करेंगे। कुछ प्रश्न है तो रख सकते हैं। कोई दादा हैंड रेज किए थे, आई थिंक वो दिख नहीं रहे हैं, तो आज का सेशन हम लोग यहीं पे ओवर करते हैं। तापसी दीदी, थैंक यू सो मच फॉर गिविंग अस सच अ वंडरफुल सेशन, and GPF really always grateful to you and even मंजुला दीदी। काफी टाइम से हम लोग मंजुला दीदी के पीछे पड़े हुए थे कि हमें चाहिए क्लास सेशन अरेंज करवा दीजिए, एंड मंजुला दीदी का अचानक आया कि मीरा दीदी now she is ready to give a session, so really GPF very grateful.
That is not, I mean, I'm not busy, but I'm a bad time manager and it is such a privilege. मैं जानती थी कि आपके प्लेटफॉर्म, आप इतने इंटेलेक्चुअल्स है, मैं प्राउड को इतना नहीं समझती जितनी मेरी मम्मी समझती है। तो मुझे पता था कि आपके पास आने के लिए मुझे काफी प्रिपेयर करके आना पड़ा। इसलिए जब भी मम्मी बोलती थी कि मैं कहती थी कि मैं थोड़ी सी पढ़ाई कर लूँ, थोड़ी सी तो लिख लूँ, राइट? थोड़े से अच्छे प्रेजेंटेशन कर लूँ। तो it was not because I was busy, it was because you guys are wonderfully intimidating, smart, kind woman that I had to prepare a little to come to you. But thank you. It is such an honor. Thank you for having me. मैं definitely फिर से आऊंगी.
Sure, Didi. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vartika Didi, and thank you all who joined us. And again, हम लोग GPI के प्लेटफॉर्म पे इस तरह के प्रोग्राम अरेंज करते रहेंगे। ऐसे नॉन स्पीकर आते रहते हैं हम लोगों के बीच में। आगे भी हम लोग ट्राई करते रहेंगे कि आप लोगों के बीच में ऐसे स्पीकर्स को लाएं जो कि आपके लाइफ के डे टू डे लाइफ के प्रॉब्लम्स को आप समझ सके। इवन PR सरकार हमारे जो श्री मूर्ति जी जो बताए हुए हैं लाइफ स्टाइल को, उसको हम लोग कैसे समझे और कैसे अपने डे टू डे जीवन में उतारें। फूड, डे टू डे हैबिट, आसन, प्राणायाम, मेडिटेशन इतना टफ भी नहीं है जितना हम सोचते हैं और घबरा जाते हैं। बहुत ही इजी है और बाबा ने इसको इतना सिंप्लीफाई करके दिया है कि अगर हम पूरी दुनिया में ढूंढने के लिए जाए तो इतना सुंदर कहीं नहीं मिलेगा। तो आज इसके साथ ही मैं आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करती हूँ और आज का सेशन यही है। नमस्कार।
थैंक यू सो मच दीदी, मीरा दीदी एंड तापसी दीदी। और ये बहुत ही वंडरफुल सेशन था। और दीदी, ये जो भी हमारे पास जो पूंजी है वो बाबा ने जो हमें दी है, प्रॉपरली अगर हमने उसको फॉलो किया तो डेफिनेटली ये सब चीजों से हम बहुत दूर रहेंगे और उनके पास डेफिनेटली जल्दी से पहुंचेंगे। तो परफेक्टली आपने बहुत सी इंपॉर्टेंट बातें बताई जिनको प्रैक्टिकली हमें फॉलो करना होगा. थैंक यू सो मच दीदी, एंड थैंक यू सो मच मीरा दीदी फॉर गिविंग मी दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी.
नो दीदी, नॉट थैंक. इवन मैं तो आप लोग सबका शुक्रगुजार हूँ. आप लोग सब आते हो तभी ये हमारा प्लेटफॉर्म है, और आगे भी हम लोग आप जैसे लोगों के साथ ही चलते रहेंगे. बस जैसे बाबा ने बोला है, कलेक्टिव वर्क, अकेले कोई कुछ नहीं कर सकते. हम लोग सबको मिल करके ही कुछ ना कुछ करना होगा. और बाबा की किसी चीज को अगर हम लोग अचीव कर पाए, उनके विश के साथ हमारे भी कदम मिला करके चल पाए, यही हमारी विश है और सब लोगों की होनी चाहिए. थैंक यू सो मच एंड नमस्कार.
नमस्कार. नमस्कार मीरा दीदी. आप आई मीन वर्तिका दीदी और आशु दीदी को तो मैं जानती हूँ. वर्तिका दीदी प्राइमरी रिसर्च करके, आशु दीदी आपके इंटीग्रेटिव मेडिसिन सभी, पर मैं सबको नहीं जानती. मीरा दीदी आप कितना बड़े सेवा कर रहे हैं, यू नो, पुटिंग दिस ऑन यूट्यूब, एंड यू नो वी हैव वेरी लिटिल हिट्स, बट जंगल में शेर एक ही होता है, राइट? तो आई थिंक इट यू आर डूइंग सो मच, एंड I mean, थोड़े से अपने, my own mother also is just an amazing. So all of you and Dada, Vimran and Das, so I think you're doing such a great human service. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Namaskar.
नमस्कार.